Alrighty, we're out here on the barn, and I figured I'd tell you about a little bit of the medication you might need. Now, I completely understand if you don't want to do medication on your sheep. With that, I recommend you be cutthroat. I've done it with certain sheep I have. If you're gonna have a flock of unmedicated sheep, when one starts to get sick, you take it out, you sell it. Now, if you don't want to let it be sick and you're like, well, I don't want it to, die while it's here, okay, then you can have the medication on hand. When one does get sick, you take it out, you medicate it. Depends on the sickness. If it's a severe sickness is what I'm talking about. You take it out, you medicate it, let it recover, and then you sell it. But that's how you have to be if you don't want to be medicated or have a medicated flock, which I understand. And make sure you have a separate pen, because the whole idea of not having a medicated flock is having the medication go through your animal, kill the worms, and then drop them out on your field. So you need to have a pen where you're willing to let that happen. A small pen for a week or something is how long the animal will be in there. But yeah, there's a few things you might need. I didn't start using the vaccinations and stuff until a little later on, and it was more experimental, and I don't know, I've never really think I've needed it. Truthfully, I've done it a few times just to do it, but I don't think it's needed. You can go to any Tractor Supply or any place, and they'll have little pictures on it. Let me show you this. That bottom left right there, it'll focus. Yeah, right there, that's a cow and that's a sheep. So that'll tell you that it's usable for sheep, and this is the Vision 7, this is the vaccination. There's a Vision 8, there's a few others. The number just means how many vaccinations are actually in the, different types are actually in the medication. This is 2 milliliters. If you ever hear someone say cc, it's the same as a milliliter. So they go, when you hear a doctor should go 2 cc's, 2 milliliters. And just how you have a syringe and you poke it in the top and you take out 2 milliliters and then you stick it in your animal. And it'll tell you how to inject it. There's a few ways of injecting different medications. Some is you like pinch the skin. So if I didn't want to go into muscle right here, I forget the term, it's sub, starts with the C, I believe. But it basically means under the skin, sub as in under. And if you didn't want to go intramuscular and you wanted to go through the skin, you'd pinch it. And if I had 3 arms, I'd really show you. You'd pinch it and then you'd stab the needle basically between your pinched fingers in under the skin, and then you'd inject it. So that's one way. So that's, if you wanted to go the vaccination route, which I think is the least important, depends where you are, I suppose. For me, in my experience, it's been the least important. That's what you can use, and that's kind of how you do it. Next, this is, in my opinion, one of the least important dewormers for the sheep I've had, because pretty much all the worming problems my sheep have been treatable by Cydectin. But this is a bendazole. And this is kind of their term. And it has the dosages on the side. It has, for sheep, a 100-pound sheep is 3 milliliters. So it's a truly small dose. And this is called the white stuff. If you're ever messing with somebody with medication, especially with sheep, and they say, get the white stuff, this is what they're talking about, a bendazole. Yeah, and this stuff, it treats, you'll have to get the package, you'll have to read it, and liver flukes and tapeworm and stomach worms, intestinal worms, lung worms. That's what it covers. And pretty much when I dose my sheep, most of the time when I'm dealing with my sheep, I'm dealing with them all at once. So I'll dose them with this and the other dewormer if I feel it's necessary. Some people believe in a set schedule for dosing your sheep. And then truthfully, probably the better way to do it is you only dose the sick sheep when they're sick. Because you can get resistance over time. For example, if you kill every worm that's susceptible to this in the animal, and say that's 99% of them, well, that last 1% is going to reproduce. And then maybe not all of that worm's offspring are resistant, but the next time you kill, you might only kill 98%. And the next time, maybe only 95%. So you don't want to keep using it and overdosing your sheep because the worms will become resistant and then it won't work. And then you're screwed. So that's why people like naturally resistant animals, because then that's your buffer. That's your buffer against the natural parasites. So yeah, albendazole is one important wormer. And this one right here, you'll notice it's a little different than the one you'll buy at the store most likely. This is a pour-on for beef and dairy cattle, Cydectin. okay? And you might be wondering why I have this for sheep. And pour on literally means you go pour it on their back. And it works some way, but when you're treating sheep, you're doing orally, which means in the mouth. And you'll see it with time if you're on those Facebook groups, and you'll hear people when you're around them, they'll say, because most of the time with sheep sidectin, it's clear, like literally the ones labeled for sheep, it's clear, liquid. And you'll see people be like, yeah, the purple stuff works better. And what are they talking about? They're talking about the cattle pour on. So you'll give this to them orally. Not a vet. Don't take that advice. Throw everything I just told you out the window. Okay? I just have this for fun. But yeah, that's sidectin. And sidectin is fixed. Sheep sidectin is fixed almost all my worming problems when I've had them. When I had a sheep with a runny tail or one that's getting skinny, not putting on weight, I'll give it to that, give them sidectin. But sheep sidectin. But I still recommend, if you have a sheep that you have to deworm more than twice in a year, sell it. And I'm pretty, I don't really get connections with my sheep. I like good producing mamas, I'll tell you that. But if a good producing mama takes a whole lot of work and I have to pull every baby and she can't deliver the milk to them and raise good offspring, I don't want her. If she has quads every time but has problems, she can go to someone else and have quads and have problems for them. So there's that. There's the medication. That's really all you need, in my opinion. Next, if you want to do this, if you want to tag, there's a few different tagging systems, like different taggers. But this is the one I have. Or this is one of the ones I have. I've been using smaller tags in sheep ears. And I have learned for me personally, I don't necessarily need to read the tag on them. I don't really care who they are or whatever. Because when I work them and there's a small tag, then I'll deal with it then. Like a small tag as in like, it goes in like this. Literally it's rounded Literally it's rounded all the way around, so there's no hole. Like once you close the loop of it, it's an oval and it's around the sheep's ear. And it's hard, it's hard for wire to slip in there. And the reason I say that is because this tag right here, it's open-ended, has a good number on it. It doesn't weigh. Sometimes you'll see people with tags and sheep ears and they're really cattle tags and it weighs down the ear and makes them have a droopy ear. I just don't like the look of that. But with these have numbers and these won't weigh down the ear. And when you put them on there, you literally, this has a bottom holder and you put down the female end of the tag. And then this top part is the male end of the tag, and you put it over this point, and you'll hold the ear, the middle of the ear, basically. You're looking for cartilage, and I go about halfway out half the time, but you feel your fingers in there, and you go like, oh yeah, there's probably nothing important in this middle part, and then you go and you put this tag right there, and when you squeeze, you really squeeze, because, imagine if someone stabbed you with a dull knife and it didn't go in, but they stabbed you hard. You jump and you freak out, and you'd still freak out if they stabbed you with a really sharp knife, but it wouldn't be a blunt force, and obviously you'd probably die, but the sheep's not going to die, but they take in, like if it goes through quickly, they can recover quicker compared to if it's blunt force and you get punched, and you're just kind of sitting right there like it hurts. And that's kind of what happens with this tag. So make sure when you go through that ear, you're holding that ear. Hopefully I can do it by myself. Hopefully you have someone to help you holding the sheep, holding the head still, and you hold the ear still, and then you grip it and you squeeze really hard. And this end will go inside, so it'll be a smaller gap, and the ear will be in this little open part. But what's the problem with this? If the sheep brushes against a fence, sheep and goat wire or a panel or something, it's open, so the wire can go between the tag and the sheep's ear. So now their ear is stuck on a panel, and what are they going to do when it's stuck? They're going to rip, and you'll see sheep with ripped ears, like in half, like split, and you see it all the time, and nobody likes it. No one likes the look. No one likes it on purpose, and you lose the identification of the animal. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend these unless you're running a big open field and your sheep aren't often next to the fences. But yeah, that's kind of the vaccination that you need to know, the medications you need to know, And the tagging, you need to know really, it's not crazy difficult. I'm sitting on this mini fridge. You can buy, I bought this for like 25 bucks. You can plug this in and then put your medication in there and they'll last longer. But yeah, it's not complicated. It's not hard. You'll be more worried about the health of the sheep when your first one gets sick, and then by the time your 20th one gets sick, you'll be like, well, you do this, give them this medication, that medication, this, and then you just wait. And if they don't get better, they don't get better, and then you sell them. You know, that's the sheep business. And predators and parasites kill sheep. That's just what kills them. You just gotta be willing and ready to take that loss if that comes. But once you get it down, and you'll notice the more you see your sheep move around, and you'd be shocked, you know, sometimes you're walking with somebody, especially when you're first starting out, they go, oh, that sheep's no good, we better check that out. And you look at sheep's just laying there, just kind of chilling, eating grass. What do you mean? It's like, well, you know, its head's kind of drooped a little too low. You know, why is its head drooping? Look at all the other ones. They're sitting there chewing, happy. That one's drooping its head. Why is it drooping its head? Like, you'll be able to tell, especially with your own sheep, when the opportunity comes and once you have a little bit of experience. But